Keanu Reeves was a famous actor, known and loved by many people. But even with all his money and success, he never acted like he was better than anyone else. He was always kind and humble, treating everyone with respect. That's why, when he opened a fancy restaurant in Los Angeles called Elysium, he wanted it to be different. He wanted it to be a place where everyone felt welcome, no matter who they were or how much money they had. But tonight, Keanu was about to find out a terrible truth about his own restaurant. He had decided to visit Elysium, but not as a celebrity. He wanted to see how his staff treated regular people. So, he put on simple clothes, an old pair of jeans, a plain hoodie, and a baseball cap that hid most of his face. He didn't make a reservation. He didn't tell anyone who he was. He just walked in like any other customer, hoping to see if his restaurant was really the welcoming place he had always dreamed of. As Keanu stepped inside, he was greeted by a tall man with a sharp jawline. His name was Damien, and he was the maitre d', the person in charge of welcoming guests and deciding who got a table. Damien barely looked at Keanu before letting out a bored sigh. "Sir, we're fully booked tonight," he said in a dismissive tone. Keanu glanced around the restaurant. Half the tables were empty. He could clearly see that there was plenty of space for another guest. "I don't mind waiting," Keanu replied, making his voice softer so it wouldn't sound too familiar. Damien raised an eyebrow and smirked. His lips curled into a mean smile, one that showed he wasn't being honest. "I don't think this is the right place for you," Damien said, his eyes flicking down to Keanu's old sneakers. For a moment, Keanu saw something in Damien's expression: judgment. Before Keanu could say anything, a young waiter named Lucas walked up. He looked confused as he glanced between Keanu and Damien. "Damien, we have walk-ins all the time. Why can't he wait?" Lucas asked, his voice uncertain. Damien gave Lucas a sharp look, his expression darkening. "Trust me, he's not our clientele," Damien said in a firm voice. Keanu felt his chest tighten. He had heard stories about fancy restaurants treating some people badly because they didn't look rich or important. But to see it happen in his own restaurant? It was shocking. He looked around again. The guests wearing expensive suits and dresses were being treated with big smiles and friendly voices. But he, dressed simply, was being turned away. Lucas hesitated, looking uncomfortable. But in the end he stepped back, not arguing further. Keanu took a deep breath and turned to leave. But just then a familiar voice rang out across the room. "Excuse me, is there a problem here?" Keanu turned around and his heart nearly stopped. Standing near the bar was Isabel Carter, one of his closest friends. She was a famous journalist, known for exposing unfairness and corruption in Hollywood. If someone was treating people unfairly, she would find out and tell the world. Isabel had been having dinner with some friends, but now, all her attention was on Damien. Damien's face instantly changed. He smiled, but it was a fake smile, the kind people put on when they were caught doing something wrong. "Oh, Miss Carter." "Of course, no problem at all," Damien said quickly. "Just handling a small situation." Isabel narrowed her eyes. "A small situation?" she repeated. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you just turned someone away for no good reason." Damien's smile started to fade. "Well," he hesitated, "we have a certain atmosphere to maintain." Keanu felt his fists clench. A certain atmosphere? He had built Elysium to be a place where everyone could feel comfortable. But now Damien was deciding who was good enough to eat there. Isabel looked at Keanu closely. Something about his posture, the way he stood, it felt familiar. She stared at him, thinking hard. Then her eyes widened. Her breath hitched. No, it couldn't be. Her sharp gaze locked onto Keanu's face. "Sir," she asked slowly, "what's your name?" Keanu hesitated. If he said his name, everything would change. Damien would suddenly act polite, pretend nothing happened. But was that what Keanu wanted? Before he could answer, Lucas, the young waiter, suddenly spoke up. "Damien, this isn't right," Lucas said quietly. "We have empty tables." Damien shot Lucas a cold glare. "Stay out of this," he snapped. But Lucas didn't back down. "You did the same thing last week to that older couple," Lucas said, his voice stronger now. "Told them we were full when we weren't." Isabel's expression darkened. "How often does this happen?" she demanded. Damien's face turned red. "Look, I don't make the rules." "But you enforce them," Keanu said quietly. Damien turned to him, clearly annoyed. "What's it to you?" he sneered. Keanu took a slow, deep breath. He had two choices. He could reveal himself and force Damien to apologize. Or he could stay silent and let the truth come out on its own. His silence was answer enough. Isabel's sharp mind worked fast. She stared at Keanu, connecting the pieces. Then she gasped. "Oh my God." She turned back to Damien, her voice cold and serious. "I'll make sure this misunderstanding gets the attention it deserves." Damien's face lost all its color. Meanwhile, Lucas, the only one who had tried to do the right thing, stepped closer to Keanu. "Sir, would you still like a table?" Lucas asked, his voice hesitant but genuine. Keanu looked at him carefully. Unlike Damien, Lucas cared. Keanu nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." Lucas gave a small nod and led him inside. As Keanu passed Damien, he could feel the man's burning stare. Damien had no idea who he had just turned away. Lucas led Keanu to a corner table, away from the fancy part of the restaurant. It was a hidden spot, where guests were seated when they weren't considered important. Keanu sat down. His mind raced. This was his restaurant, his dream. And yet, his own staff had treated him like he didn't belong. Lucas placed the menu in front of him. He hesitated before speaking. "Sir, I'm really sorry about what happened." Keanu studied him. The young waiter's face was tight with frustration. "Have you ever spoken up before?" Keanu asked. Lucas sighed. "A couple of times. But it's hard. Damien controls everything here." Keanu nodded slowly. He understood. Power, when placed in the wrong hands, turned into poison. Across the restaurant, Isabel sat at the bar, her sharp eyes flicking toward him. She wasn't done with this. Not by a long shot. Neither was Keanu. Because in the coming days, everything will change. Lucas nodded and walked away. A few moments later, Damien appeared again, standing near the entrance. He looked nervous. His eyes moved quickly toward Keanu's table, but he didn't come closer. He was trying to act normal, but Keanu could tell something was wrong. Keanu didn't know what Damien was waiting for. Was he looking for an answer? A sign. Then the entrance doors opened. A woman walked in and suddenly the whole room felt different. She had dark, curly hair that fell over her shoulders. She walked with confidence, and people turned their heads to look at her without knowing why. She wore a simple black dress. It was elegant but not flashy. She wasn't here to impress anyone. Keanu felt his heart stop for a moment. It was Serena Carter, Isabel's younger sister. The woman he had once loved. For a second, everything else faded away. The problem with Damien, the unfairness of his restaurant, it all disappeared. All that mattered was her. It had been years, but seeing Serena again felt like stepping back into a story that was never finished. Her eyes moved around the room, unreadable. Then she saw him. Keanu knew this night was about to change everything. Serena stood at the entrance, the chandelier light shining above her. She hadn't changed much. She still had the same beautiful features, the same strong presence. But her eyes, they looked different. There was something deep in them, something Keanu recognized. But Isabel, who was standing at the bar, noticed her sister and raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Serena?" Serena glanced at her sister, but her eyes quickly returned to Keanu. The shock on her face was clear. She hadn't expected to see him. Not here. Not after all these years. Keanu felt his heart tighten. Their last conversation had been filled with things left unsaid. They had walked away from each other not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. And now, fate had brought them back together. Damien, still near the entrance, stood up straighter. His usual smug attitude returned, and he stepped forward with a fake smile. "Miss Carter," he greeted smoothly. "What a pleasure to have you here. Would you like a table?" Serena didn't even look at him. She walked straight to Keanu's table, her heels clicking on the floor. She stopped in front of him. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Is this seat taken?" Keanu let out a breath. His heart was beating fast, but he stayed calm. He gestured to the chair in front of him. "Not anymore." Serena sat down, crossing her legs, never looking away from him. Lucas, who had been watching, stepped forward. "Would you like anything to drink, Miss Carter?" She gave him a small smile. "Just water, please." Lucas nodded and walked away. Isabel, still at the bar, watched them closely. She knew what this was. The past meeting the present. And she also knew that neither Keanu nor Serena ever did anything without a reason. Keanu leaned forward slightly. "Didn't expect to see you here." Serena tilted her head. "I could say the same." Keanu let out a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. Just the weight of everything between them. Then her expression changed. "What just happened at the front?" Keanu studied her face. Should he tell her everything? Serena had never been the kind of person to accept half-truths. So he told her. He told her about Damien. About the unfair treatment. About how he walked into his own restaurant and was told he didn't belong. Serena listened carefully. Her eyebrows furrowed as he spoke. When he finished, she looked over her shoulder at Damien, pressing her lips together. Then she turned back to Keanu. You built this place. I thought I did, he admitted, his voice softer. Serena let out a slow breath, shaking her head. And now you know the truth. A silence settled between them. Keanu realized something. Elysium wasn't just his restaurant anymore. It had become something he never wanted it to be. And Serena, the woman who had once been his future, was here watching it all fall apart. Then she said something that made his skin go cold. Keanu, I need to tell you something. Before she could continue, a loud crash echoed through the restaurant. Everyone turned to look. A glass had shattered near the bar. But it wasn't just any glass. It was Isabel's. She stood there, her hand clenched into a fist. Her drink spilled onto the floor. The whole restaurant was silent. But Isabel wasn't looking at the mess. She was staring at Serena. You're really going to sit there, she said, her voice shaking, and pretend like nothing happened? Serena froze. Keanu felt the air change. It became heavy, full of things left unsaid. Lucas hurried to clean up the broken glass, but no one paid attention to him. The tension was too thick. Serena took a deep breath. Isabel, not now. Isabel let out a hollow laugh. Not now. When then? When it's too late? When you disappear again like last time? Keanu clenched his fists on the table. He looked between the two sisters, starting to understand. This wasn't just about the restaurant. It was about them. Serena's jaw tightened. I came here for a reason. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. Then say it. Keanu looked at Serena. His voice was careful. What were you going to tell me? Serena's eyes flickered down for just a moment. When she looked back up, Keanu saw something there. Regret. Well, her lips parted, but it was hard to say the words. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. Keanu felt something inside him break. The restaurant, the scandal, the betrayal. It all faded. It was just him and her. Isabel wiped her eyes. Her anger softened into something else. Something fragile. You left, Serena, she whispered. You left and never told him why. Keanu swallowed. He had spent years wondering. Why had Serena walked away? Why had their love ended before it even had a chance? Serena blinked back tears. I was scared, she admitted. Scared of being in love with a man the world wouldn't let me have. Scared of losing myself in something I couldn't control. Keanu's voice was barely above a whisper. And now? Serena took a slow, shaky breath. And now I know that losing you was the real mistake. Silence filled the room. It was heavy with all the years they had lost. Then a voice broke through. Sir. Lucas stood beside them, holding a folded napkin. His face was tense. Keanu reached for it. When he opened it, his stomach dropped. It was a note. The words were messy, rushed. You don't know the full story. Meet me outside. No. At the bottom, written in hurried ink, was a name. Damien. Keanu's heart pounded. Because just like that, he knew the night was far from over. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.